Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, he was a backup dancer for Heavy D during the 1992 Blue Funk Tour. My brother Mike.
That's right. Yeah. I'm one of Du Bois. We often forgot Du Bois, just written out of rap, hip hop music history, but I'm one of Du Bois in Heavy D and the Boys. So
yeah. Now that he found love, he's going to dance is what he's going to do.
We know what we're going to do.
Yeah. It's going to be good. It's going to be real good. On this week's episode of Royals Weekly, we're going to discuss some questions for the Royals heading into spring training. Spring training is now underway. Games will begin soon. Hallelujah. We're going to talk about some questions that we have about the Royals heading into that. We're going to pick a few 2026 MLB breakout candidates. Every team needs guides to break out. Who might be the breakout candidates for the Royals this year? And then for our last segment, we're going to spotlight a few minor league breakout candidates because you want that farm system to stay healthy as well. I do want to make a programming note. We are now officially back for weekly episodes on Mondays. So you'll be getting a Monday episode from us until the end of the Royals season this year. So make sure you're tuning in every Monday. Make sure you're rating and reviewing. But if you would also like to get an episode every Wednesday, you can subscribe to our Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. $5 a month gets you a ton of extra content. We get at least one, we get a midweek episode from us. Mike usually does a solo episode during the week. I do a written post. It's a lot of good fun. It's extra content. And starting February 20th, we'll be offering new yearly subscribers 10% off until opening day. So keep your ears and eyes open for that. February 20th, you get a 10% off of all this extra content as long as you do a yearly subscription. More than worth it. We have a ton of fun over there on the Royals Weekly Substack.
If you can't support the show,
it's a steal of a deal. I just put out an article today. We got a bunch of great stuff going on there.
Mike's Drop's going to start up when the regular season does too. So, if you want my insanity once a week, there you go.
Solo, unfiltered through me.
So yeah, straight. Mark can't censor me in Mike's Drop. You can't censor me. All right.
If you would like to censor us, go ahead and leave us a rating or a review. But here's how it works. 5 stars is real bad. So give us 5 stars and then leave a comment with words like lovely, handsome, and adorable. Okay. Those are the types of reviews we love to read on the show. Make sure you're doing that. We love to interact with you in those ways. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
Great chance to get your bronze on. You'll be looking like Ricky Martin in 2 weeks. Guy looked great at the Super Bowl, didn't he? He's like 60. Looks like he's 22.
Yeah. Eric has repeatedly finished among the top 10 real estate agents in the Phoenix area this year because he gives all his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to help you learn the ins and outs of the Phoenix area and guide you through buying a new home.
You don't want to be stuck in the neighborhood furthest from Costco. That is my absolute nightmare. I've had nightmares where I'm chasing a $1.50 hot dog and Dr. Pepper, but I'm just falling behind,
Saying a $1.50 hot dog just makes me kind of like, I don't want to eat that.
Hey, they're fantastic. All right.
Okay. All right. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in what a life in the Phoenix area might hold, let him make the experience all about you. Spring training is underway, and it looks like the Royals are basically completely healthy to start the spring training experience. That's good. That's step one. That's what they want to be doing there. Now they have several other questions to answer over the next 6 weeks. We're going to identify and discuss a few of those questions. Mike, get us started with the first question that you have for the Royals as spring training kicks off.
Well, I think it's the biggest question. You and I have talked about it on the midweek episodes and even a couple times throughout this offseason. Can Jack Caglione be the bat that you need him to be for this offense to take a big step forward? It's on the front of every Royals fan's mind. Aaron Rodgers did a big story on it for MLB.com, talking about the changes that Jack Caglione has tried to make and the plan that he's had to improve over the offseason. specifically identifying swing decisions as part of that. And that's going to be the difference maker in his ability to tap into that raw power. Talked a little bit about some mechanical changes in that article as well to maybe make him a little bit more, I guess, able to access some of that power, even if he's making better swing decisions. What you don't want to happen is you don't want a guy to make an approach change that then affects doesn't work with his mechanics. And so I think the mechanics are changing slightly to adapt for Cags to be able to make better swing decisions. And I think that is the goal. You might think like Jack Caglione doesn't need to tap into 100% of his power all the time to be able to hit home runs. He's got that much. And so if it helps his ability not to chase, to widen the stance out, to let the ball get deeper, whatever it is, that is going to be a benefit for the team overall and a benefit for Cags moving forward. So I think that's going to be a big question. Interested to see how much he gets to hit in the World Baseball Classic when Team Italy plays. But that's, I think, the biggest driver for the ceiling of this offense in 2026.
Yeah, I think he'll get a lot of chances to hit for Team Italy because it's Team Italy. And so I think he's going to be in the lineup every game pretty much, which is great because he needs those reps. I read that and Roger's article as well and was interested to see. I mean, it was interesting. You love to see that the number one thing he was focusing on was swing decisions. I'm not entirely sure I loved some of the drills they were describing and stuff, but that's a very partial look at what they were doing. And so I want those swing decisions to be better. We've talked about that in the past. I want the swing to have a little bit more loft to it. I want him to be able to generate some launch angle consistently. I've written about this on the Substack over the offseason. It's not just a swing decisions issue with him. It's also a launch angle issue. And I think if he could sort of find a way to meet the happy point of those two things, you're going to see a special season from him. The question that I'm really looking for them to answer, one of the questions I think, is what role will Lane Thomas have? We saw that as an addition to the outfield. The Royals essentially made 2 outfield adds this offseason. A lot of people talked about Isaac Collins, but it's less certain what kind of role Lane Thomas has. Is he a straight platoon partner for Kyle Isbell? Is he playing every time there's a lefty in there in center field? Is he more of a platoon partner for Jack Caglione? Does he switch between both of those spots? Like, how much will he play instead of Isaac Collins? Like, it's one of those big questions about him. And he's an interesting person to have it about because it's still unclear what he can be. We know we've seen him have league average offensive seasons. We've seen him be better than that. We've also seen him be worse than that. And so what kind of Lane Thomas are you going to get? And how does that play into what role he ends up having? But just understanding what kind of role is that going to be? How frequently is Lane Thomas going to be playing for the Royals? Mike, what is your second question that you'd like to ask the Royals as we head into spring training?
It's got a little bit to do with other guys who are going to be platooning. Probably is it going to be a straight platoon at second base between Jonathan India and Michael Massey? And if it's not
the way the Royals are talking,
so if it's not, then is it Nick Lofton who's going to get time there? What are we going to see there? Well, just because they're talking that way also doesn't mean that that's not what's best too, because last year they talked about and tried the whole, well, let's have some of them play left field some too. And that quickly went down the toilet as both of them showed no real propensity for playing a corner outfield position, no real ability there. And so even if the Royals want it to maybe look a little bit different, is that where we end up? Do we end up with just a straight platoon at second base where Michael Massey is hitting against righties on the big side of the split and Jonathan India is hitting against lefties? Now, I heard Matt Quatrero throw India's name in leading off again. Don't know that I love that. But, and I don't know that that's, not just coaches speak for we're going to look at everybody and blah, blah, blah. But I want to know what that second base position is going to look like. I want to know ultimately who's going to be getting a good chunk of the playing time there, because right now it looks like probably the weakest spot in your lineup if you get what you got last year from those two guys.
Yeah. And of course the Royals are indicating that Jonathan India looks like he might have the inside track on an everyday job at second base. They seem to be very confident in a bounce back for him. That's at least how I infer what they're talking about related to India. We'll see if that's the case. I don't know. You have a very easy platoon option there with Michael Massey and Jonathan India. I got a question about pitching, because that's the thing that's going to be the bedrock for this team. How are they going to sort out the starting pitching, the starting rotation? Like, how's that going to shake itself out? There's, they came into, Mike has an idea.
I have an answer.
Oh, you have an answer? Go for it.
I have an answer for that, Bob.
Yeah.
My answer is they're going to trade somebody, because I went and looked through there today. There is no way they can keep And I'm not necessarily talking about just somebody from the starting rotation. Somebody from the starting rotation or the bullpen that they currently have there is going to get traded before the season starts. I can almost guarantee that. Because if not, think about what if not, you're sending down Luinder Avila, or you're sending down Ryan Bergert and Kolek. There's just not.
Or Noah Cameron and Kolek, or Noah Cameron and Ryan Bergert.
You're just sending down a bunch of guys who have a lot of major league experience already. And so that seems a little odd. And, you've also got this weird Bailey Falter situation. So I think it's a great question that you're asking, but I did the numbers. I looked at the numbers today and I go, there's no way all these guys get kept. And I think that's why you see that move maybe for a Mitch Spence, who you don't really care keeping in AAA. If you didn't hear about it, the Royals traded one of Mark's guys, and I'm sure you were disappointed to see it, AJ Causey, for Mitch Spence in the A's rotation, kind of a quad A, but a guy who can pitch in the bullpen and the starting rotation. I think that's more of a depth move because I think they're planning on getting rid of one of these guys.
And if you want a deeper dive on Mitch Spence, I did that in today's weekly wrap up. There's a section on him and what the Royals might see in him as a prospect. I actually think it's a pretty good move for them because I think Spence's ceiling is a lot higher than AJ Causey's, who he got traded for. And so I'm interested in that move very much. And yeah, this question about the rotation, it's a tough one because I don't see how, I don't see how you get out of this without sending guys down to minor league baseball who really shouldn't be in minor league baseball, right? And it's a waste. It's really inefficient to have, Noah Cameron burning some of his prime years down in AAA, Ryan Bergert burning some of his prime years, Stephen Kolek, who's 28, 29 years old, burning his prime years down in AAA. That's not a really wise move when you could trade somebody and set yourself up better later. All right, Mike, what's your third question heading into this spring training for the Royals?
Can Vinny Pasquantino and Michael Garcia fight back against regression this year? Both of them had career years last year. It's a big breakout from Michael. Vinny Pasquantino turned into somebody you feel pretty comfortable with having as, a middle of the order kind of bat, 117, I think, RBI, hit over 30 home runs, 116 weighted runs created plus for Vinny. But regression can be a monster that's hard to fight back against. And so if those guys can stay at that level and hope answered, possibly even maybe take another step forward, because at least for Michael, I think there is some room to take another step forward, perhaps, especially when it comes to the approach. Both guys had career highs in pull rate in the air, and that was kind of what unlocked a lot of what they needed to do. And I think they can...
A step forward is just play better to start the year, right? Like you play better in the first month and you're,
if he's the same guy in the first month that he was in the middle of the year, then you're talking about a 120 to 125 weighted runs created plus for the year, which is a big deal for him. I mean, he helps you win probably 3 to 5 games in that first month if he's the Vinny Pasquantino from June or July. And so I think if we can get to that place and they can really fight back against that regression and be the players we saw last year or even slightly better, that's a big step for an offense that's counting on a couple of guys that are kind of still unknowns in Carter Jensen and Jack Caglione. And maybe you can even throw Isaac Collins in there, as Isaac Collins only really has 1 year of major league production.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me. And I don't think people are talking as much about Vinny and Michael regression because, it's the hopium that this is a new plateau and not the heights of their career last year. My last question is, Royals, are you sure you don't need another lefty in the bullpen? I know they keep making all these moves. Sometimes I'm signing a minor league guy. I'm making a trade here, but it's always for a right-handed pitcher. It's never for a lefty in the bullpen. And they have Matt Strahm. They went out and made that move. That's an important move for them. But that's basically the only lefty they have who can generate any kind of swing and miss. The rest is what? Daniel Lynch.
He's the other
Bailey
one.
Falter, maybe if he's in the bullpen. Neither of those guys are swing and miss pitchers. Neither of those guys are people you want to come in when you need a strikeout. And so I question whether or not that's really what they want to roll with lefties in the bullpen. I would be more comfortable if they had at least one more lefty who looked like he could generate some swing and miss, even if it's just against lefties. That's fine. I don't care if it's like, oh, he's a solid guy in the 8th inning. He doesn't have to be that good. He just needs to be able to get lefties to swing and miss. I'd take the left-handed version of John Schreiber, whoever that is. I'd go for that guy. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
Think of yourself as a Rocky and all in physical therapy as a kick-ass montage. They'll make you work, but you'll beat up a Russian and end the Cold War.
So that's nice, And of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
Gets easier to beat up Russians when you are basically a cyborg at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's next level stuff. If you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from after an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-pt.com, or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. There's an old bit of wisdom in baseball circles that World Series teams need several guys having their best seasons to make it. From watching Bobby Witt Jr.'s breakout in 2024 that a breakout season can carry teams all the way to the playoffs and beyond. The question for the Royals in 2026 is, who's going to break out? Who's going to be the guy who takes the Royals from an 82-win team to a 90-win team and playoff glory? Right? That type of guy. Mike and I will each offer and discuss 3 candidates that we think might be a good chance at breaking out this season. And since Mike never got enough love as a child, he can go first.
Yeah, Mom. Why won't you love me, Mommy? No, Mom loves, I think, both of us equally, or at least that's what she always tells me.
When you're not around, that's what she says.
So this was a little bit tough, but when I'm looking for breakout candidates, I'm looking for guys who maybe need one, and this will apply to our minor league guys too. I'm looking for a guy who maybe needs one thing to change, or two small things to change, something like that could really boost, but he is proficient in a lot of other areas. The first guy I'm going with, we saw Luinder Avila last year. We saw him be able to do things, but it was 14 innings that he pitched last year in Major League Baseball. In those 14 innings, though, a 28% strikeout rate. He looked very, very good. The question is, in what way will he be able to break out? Ann Rogers, again, with some great reporting there from spring training, talked about the battle in the bullpen there and talked about him being part of the group of guys who are right now working as starters. And there's a lot of people in the organization who still see Luinder Avila as a starter. Others who say, hey, he can really help us out now in the bullpen. As you know, Mark, I have always been a proponent of guys starting in the bullpen at the major league level before they transition to the starting rotation. We saw it work really well here in Kansas City for Zach Greinke. Michael Wacha started his career that way in St. Louis. I think it's something that can really work for guys. You work on getting hitters out in kind of game situationally in games. I think it works out great. And I think really the thing that can really help him, the one thing I was talking about earlier, is he can improve those pitch metrics on the fastball a little bit, make it a little bit more of a swing and miss type pitch. I think you're talking about an elite bullpen guy who can then eventually carry that into the starting role where maybe the velocity comes down a little bit, but if the shape on the fastball is better, I think you're going to see him be even more successful as a starter that way. And there isn't anything that says he can't be a bullpen guy in 26 and transition into the starting rotation in 27. It is very much allowed.
It is. And he last year really showed the type of stuff that you would associate with somebody who can have success as a starter. The thing is, the question is, how's the command going to look again this year? Like, he had a real issue walking guys in AAA last year. Didn't show up as much in his 14-inning sample as a reliever, but if he can rein that command in as well, that gives him a chance to consistently go out there and be more than a reliever. I'm going with the most obvious one I could think of, which is normally Mike's move, but my number one breakout candidate for 2026 is a Carter Jensen, ladies and gentlemen. We saw it in a 69-game sample last year. It was wonderful.
69 plate appearances.
Oh, sorry.
69 games would be
69.
Be really
plate
excited
appearance
about that.
Sample. It wouldn't even be a breakout candidate anymore if he killed it over 69 games. 69 plate appearances to end last season. He had a 51 or a 159 weighted runs created plus of those 69 plate appearances, and his secondary metrics were off the charts. Right, like he was hard hit or hard contact rate. His His walkout and strikeout rates were incredible, or strikeout and walk rates. His barrel rate was insane. Like, you go look at his StatCast sheet and it just looks like Christmas. It's red everywhere. It's wild. It's amazing. And what's weird about that, if you look at his advanced numbers, you might think, okay, 69 games, small sample. He could have gotten really fortunate in that. If you look at all of his expected numbers, they're better than his actual numbers were last year. He actually might have been unfortunate last season at the plate. So that, given an offseason to work more on blocking and being a better catcher, I think we'll just give him an opportunity. I mean, he's like second odds on favorite to be AL Rookie of the Year next year. I mean, everybody's tapping in on Carter Jensen right now and saying this guy could break out in a big way. And I think they might actually be underselling his offense a little bit, just a little. If that makes sense. Mike, breakout candidate number 2 from you. Who's going to make it happen this season?
I went with a guy that we often criticize on this program, but I'm going with Michael Massey because I think there's still some things to work with there, a couple of key areas of improvement, and I think he could blossom into a very usable 2 to 3.5 WAR player, 4 WAR player. The 2 key areas being chase rate. That's always been his thing. All you have to do is get a little bit better at the chase rate. He is consistently in the bottom 10th percentile in chase rate. Get him to the 40th, and you have a usable second baseman that you can play almost every day. Now, maybe you take him away against a tough lefty, but he becomes a really good player. Another area that I think he could stand to improve or that would help him, but I would consider this a secondary thing, bat speed. He's never been a great bat speed guy. He's usually in the bottom 15th to 20th percentile in bat speed as well. He already gives you a very high floor on the defensive side. So you know he can handle himself at second base. You know he's not going to really hurt you on the base path. He's not going to help you much on the base paths either, but he's not going to hurt you. And then the launch angle still remains a plus. It's just about deciding that you're only going to swing at premium pitches for you. If he can do that, then he becomes a valuable player. And obviously they know that. Michael Massey knows that, and he knows it's getting towards the end of opportunities for him with the Royals. And so hopefully we see a different Michael Massey in the spring training.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. I think the fact that you mentioned that launch angle, the fact that he knows how to pull the ball in the air, maybe better than any Royals hitter.
Naturally, yeah.
Naturally.
Like his natural
he's
ability
pulling the
to do
ball
that,
in the air
yeah.
all the time. If he could just figure out what pitches to swing at. My breakout candidate for this year is going to be one Steven Cruz, who we saw have a pretty decent debut 2 years ago. Looked electric at times, but it was in a pretty short stint. He has yet to put it all together over the course of a full season. And last year, injuries slowed his effectiveness just a little bit, dropped his strikeout rate, was having velocity issues at times. He put up a 3.74 ERA last year, which isn't terrible, but I think he's got a lot more potential-wise inside that right arm. When you think about his frame, 6'7", he's helmeted up there, 98 to 100. He's throwing that devastating cutter. That sort of thing speaks to as like an 8-inning setup man to me. And I think he could fulfill that potential this year if he can stay healthy and continue to go out there blowing balls by guys. Because one, it's not just the velocity, it's also the extension. Gets incredible extension off his frame. You would think that could be something really, really special. So I'm looking for him to break out in a way that's low 3 or even high 2 ERAs this year, with maybe an increase back to his regular strikeout rate. Give it to us now, Mike. Who's your breakout candidate number 3?
Speaking of return to his high strikeout rate, let's talk Lucas Sirsak, right? I've mentioned him on the midweek episodes for our Substack subscribers quite a bit, but he had good. I think the reason a lot of people aren't talking about him more is because he had good production numbers last year, right? He had a 2.64 ERA, he had a 1.17 WHIP. He was reliable, but it was super labored. There were always guys on base. He was getting hit hard at times. His strikeout rate went from 28.5 in 2024 to 19.3. He almost went 10% down in a year. And he just didn't look like he was getting the swing and miss that we usually, expect from him. Now, the fastball has never generated a ton of swing and miss, but he was always able to kind of keep guys off balance because he had 4 pitches as a reliever, and he had a really good slider that he could kind of lean on. The problem was last year, the slider loses a little bit of depth. It's not getting the downward break that he had in previous years, and that leads to fewer strikeouts and more extra base hits. Now, the batting average against the slider wasn't terrible still, but the slugging was much higher, as some of those tended to spin over the middle of the zone and get crushed. And so I think if we can get Ursig back, and he can get that feel for the slider a little bit down like he had in 24 and even 23 before that with the A's, then I think you're not looking at just Estevez as, hey, if Estevez goes down, we're in big trouble. No, you have Ursig, you have Strom still, and possibly, as you mentioned, even Steven Cruz stepping into a back end role if we need him to.
Yeah, I think they need Ursig. I mean, they kind of need that in a bad way. They need Ursig to be original Ursig and not what he was last year when he was kind of hurt for significant stretches. I'm talking about a guy who they would also love to bounce back. And we mentioned him earlier when we talked about the second base competition, how that platoon's going to break down. I have a little bit of faith in what the Royals are saying, that Jonathan India is going to bounce back. So he's my breakout candidate. And breakout's probably the wrong word, but bounce back for sure is the right word here. It's not hard to know what caused India's offensive issues last year. He dropped in two ways. One, his line drive rate went super down from like 21, almost 22% down to 16%, which is a lot for a line drive rate, right? Also, his walk rate went down from over 12% to 9%, right? And so those two things, when you're a guy who doesn't have big raw power, your walk rate and your line drive rate are basically your whole offensive portfolio, right? And so he needs to be walking over 10% of the time. He needs to be hitting line drives over 20% of the time. And that wasn't happening last year. Consequently, he had the worst offensive season of his career. I expect a bounce back because he's fully admitted that the size of the park, the dimensions of Kauffman got in his head, and he started to change the way he hit. And you could see it at times, right? And so when he got a chance this offseason to hopefully reset his brain, get back to an approach that really works for him and hit some more line drives, he'll have a lot better of a chance to get back to being that 100 to 110 weighted runs created plus guy that the Royals thought they were getting when they traded for him. Mike, what household chores do you refuse to do yourself?
Many household chores. Window cleaning, pressure washing, and most importantly, gutter cleaning.
And why is that?
Because I had a nightmare once where the gutters tried to bite my fingers off.
Sounds nice. If you're wise like Mike, reach out to the professionals at Window Wolf for all of your window cleaning, gutter cleaning, and pressure washing needs. Window Wolf is a locally operated small business with all the professional know-how to keep your feet on the ground and your house or business shining bright. I've known the owner of Window Wolf for years, and I can tell you there's no one more reliable for high-quality service. Plus, Window Wolf is revolutionizing home maintenance with their new instant price calculator, which gives you a free quote without the home visit or entering a bunch of your personal information. Window Wolf is making the process easy and the price affordable. And for a limited time only, you can get 50% off when you book using their instant price calculator. Just visit windowwolf.com. That's windowwolf.com and use the code Royals50. That's Royals50, no spaces. When using the instant price calculator, save big bucks, get a bunch of quality service.
50% off in this economy is a damn gift.
It's a gift. It's a lovely, lovely gesture on their part.
Affordability right there.
Be smart and let the pack handle your pains with Window Wolf. The Royals have worked for a few years now to turn their player acquisition and development into something that can consistently feed their major league team. So far, they've made good progress with hopes that their hitting development can start to catch up to where their pitching development is and make strides now that they've got some fresh blood in there. With that in mind, Mike and I are considering which Royals prospects might be poised for a breakout campaign in 2026. Mike, who do you see as the prospect most likely to break out in 2026?
Well, I've talked about him a lot. You know, he's kind of my boy. Okay. Carson Rocafort is the first guy that I'm going to talk about. And you might say, well, he broke out last year, but it wasn't over an extended period. So I'm going with him this year. I want to see him have a continuation of the mini breakout that we saw last year. Can he continue that is the question. He struggled to start 2025 in a way like he had struggled the year. I mean, big time. It looked like, man, Carson Rocafort has not taken a step forward at all. And he was in high A. But then all of a sudden, click, something happens. He made an adjustment. It's really even hard for me to tell what it was, but it was boom. He was off to the races over the course of like a weekend. Everything changed. And the back half of that year last year between high A and double A, he was killing it. I mean, he was better at high A even than he'd been at double A. Or sorry, he was better at double A than he'd even been at high A. We saw better power numbers. We saw higher walk rates. We saw the strikeout rate come down a little bit, though there's still improvement there to be made with the strikeout rate. I want to know, can that continue? He's going to start at probably double A this year. I want to see him continue that breakout and be a guy who can be a viable candidate to take over in center field, assuming the Royals don't continue to keep Kyle Isbell, extend him past his years of control. I think Carson Roccaforte could step in and do that for you. You know the defense is good. If he can lower the strikeout rate just a tick, you're talking about a guy who could be a very quality player for you.
Yeah, Roccaforte's a guy I think a lot of people are looking for, especially because it's not outside the realm of possibility that he could raise all the way. I mean, if he has a really good year, like a really strong year, he could be in Major League Baseball in 2026. That is
he's the 20th rated prospect on MLB Pipeline.
That's crazy. Well, right now they haven't come out with their 2026 rankings yet. He'll go up. He'll go up.
That seems a little low for me, but maybe he'll be higher in the new one.
I think he will be. My number one breakout candidate for Royals prospects is Yandel Ricardo. We've talked about him in the past. He made an interesting journey last year. He was at one point one of the highest cost international signings they had for whatever class he was in. Switch hitter, good physicality, shortstop. Looks like he could hit with some power as he continues to fill out. The tools are all there for Ricardo. Last year, made his stateside debut. He actually went through 3 different levels last year. I think he started in the DSL, then he went to the Complex League, then he went to Low A all last year. That's a lot of levels to traverse last year. Stalled out a little bit in Low A, sort of started finding out, okay, he came in when roughly a lot of the college pitchers did. So he started to see like, oh, this is tough here in affiliated ball. And so that's something he'll have to learn from and build off of. But in terms of like, when you're looking at prospects, who do you not worry about? Does this guy have the raw tools? You don't worry about that for Yonder Ricardo. It's not going to be an issue of will he be able to hit the ball hard enough? If he fills out, he will be. No problem at all. Will he be able to play a good enough defense? Yep, that's taken care of. Right? You don't have to worry about certain things with him. And I think that his ability to sort of progress the way he did last year just points to the fact that he's pretty good at making adjustments, pretty good at moving in different directions when he needs to. And I think he's got a lot of potential and the chance to really bust out in 2026, especially under a new hitting regime at the minor league level. And so hopefully that ends up paying dividends for him. Mike, give us that number 2 breakout candidate.
Here's another guy you and I have talked about a bit over the years. It's Drew Beam. Drew Beam's an interesting guy. He's going to have an interesting year, I think, for Drew Beam as he looks to start in Double A probably this year. Drew Beam, if you don't know, he was a 3-year starter at Tennessee. The Royals took him, I think, in the 3rd round. He was a guy who came out of college already very polished. Command was very good. There was questions on if the stuff would play in professional baseball. And that's kind of continued to be what we've seen from him. We've seen good command, we've seen polish, we've seen 4 good pitches, but where's the improvement of this stuff? And that'll be what decides if Drew Beam has a breakout this year or not, has he improved some of the secondary pitches especially, but the fastball could use improvement too, to get some swing and miss. That's the issue with him. He needs a little bit more swing and miss if he wants to make it to Major League Baseball. My hope is that the Royals got with him and sent him somewhere in this offseason to improve those spin rates, to get more breaking on his stuff, to get more swing and miss in his game. And then if he brings that back with the command, then you've got a guy who could move pretty quickly this year and show some stuff in Double A that we maybe haven't even seen in the lower levels from him.
Yeah, Drew Beam. It's so interesting. Each of our number 2 breakout candidates are 2 pitchers in a very similar mold, honestly. Beam is very similar to the guy that I've chosen in Felix Arande, who reminds me a ton of Steven Zobak, who was command first guy, doesn't have high walk numbers. But the question is, will the stuff be enough? Will the velocity be enough? Will the arsenal be enough to be legit starting prospect as they move up? Because you got to continue to miss bats or start missing bats as you move up. Arande put up really good numbers in high A last year, 2.8 something ERA and all that sort of stuff. But he didn't strike a lot of guys out. And anytime that's the case, you wonder, what's it going to be like when he moves up to Double A? Arande is only 22 years old. He looks like he could add some physicality, some muscle, some strength still to his frame. but he's going to need to. He's going to need to increase the velocity on his fastball. He's going to need to find another, few inches of movement on some of his secondary pitches to be a consistent starting candidate, somebody who looks like he's going to be viable in the upper minors and beyond. Mike, last but not least, who's your breakout candidate number 3?
I went with a deep cut for number 3 here. Okay. I'm going to talk
so
about
deep.
a guy.
Ann Rogers mentioned him earlier today.
Yeah, I know. That's why I picked him actually. But I was like, man, I don't even know who this guy is really. I remember him a little bit. I remember us taking him, but I hadn't heard anything about him since then. And so I was like, okay, well, let me take a look into this guy. Dennis Colleran, okay, relief pitcher, drafted him out of Northeastern University, mostly at A and high A last year, but had some fantastic numbers. A 1.61 batting average against last year between those two levels, a 1.06 whip, and a 2.85 ERA. He brings the heat at 97 to 98 from a sidearm delivery. Now, he can go higher than that, but that's the thing Ann Rogers mentioned today was he was one of the guys that is impressed early in spring training just with the sheer velocity that he's bringing from the right side. He's got kind of this weirdo sidearm delivery, and it's not like some of the other ones you'll see because it kind of drops down a little bit late, but he's got a good slider from that arm slot as well. He has a changeup in there as well, so he's not just a 2-pitch guy. He's an interesting dude and is a solid athlete and on a bigger frame. I think he's like 6'3", 225. So he's an interesting guy that I'm looking for to see if, okay, that worked at high A. I think he only got one start at double A last year, or one relief appearance at double A last year. So I expect him to start at double A this year and see if he can't really move it along and continue to get those high strikeout numbers that we saw from him last year in double A. That'll really be a testing ground for Colleran, I think.
Yeah, so interesting, so indicative of the types of things the Royals are often trying to draft later in drafts. So, in the last few years, Colleran, AJ Causey, guys who are definitely just going to be relievers, but who look like they can move quickly through a system. Or sidewinders, both of those guys are, and stuff like that.
Different from the starting profile that they've been drafting as well. They've been drafting guys that are similar to Beam. Even if you look at David Shields and guys like that, and who's the righty that I like?
Kendry Chirio.
No, I like him too, obviously, but he similar to Shields, but right-handed high school guy. I can't remember his name now, but guys that are good athletes on the mound, but maybe haven't reached their peak of stuff. That's what they've been getting at, but show good command and good polish already. And then they're going to try and improve that stuff. That's what they've been doing in the starting guys. For the relief guys, it's been very different. They're going for guys who already have a pitch that can miss bats, whether that's the fastball, whether that's a breaking pitch, whatever it is. They're looking for guys who can already miss bats that are known bullpen arms that can move quickly through a system. And honestly, I really like that approach. I think that's going to you're going to miss on some starting guys that way, guys who just never develop the stuff. But when you hit on them, they're going to be guys who don't walk a ton of guys, who you can count on when they turn 26 and 27. There's going to be a pretty high floor for some of those guys too. And so I really like that approach. It's a real plan when it felt like for a long time in the Royals organization, you were just throwing noodles at the wall, see what sticks. And hope,
it was always a grab bag. It was like, we'll take this guy, someone here. It was like a Chinese buffet. Or like
this guy's 6'4", take him. Okay.
Take him. He's nothing like the 5'11" guy we just took. Yeah, I'm going with another pitcher, maybe from the same class. Was Colleran taken last year? Was he 2025? Or maybe he's the year before.
No, I think he's the year before.
I'm going with the 2025 draftee, Michael Lombardi, as my breakout candidate. I'm just so high on this guy as a prospect because, man, when you look at him, so we mentioned that the Royals love taking guys who are like command first guys waiting for the arsenal to come around. Lombardi's not one of those guys. He's got decent command, but he has serious stuff. Like he has big curveball, really good fastball with really good ride to it. Big athleticism. He's a really good athlete as well. Hit and pitched at Tulane and hasn't really focused on pitching, exclusively at all. And yet had a really successful junior year. A guy who I have big hopes for and think he could really show why he was seen as sort of a really great pick for the Royals when they took him, because everybody's like, this guy could be a mid-rotation starter pretty easily given his stuff and athleticism. there's a decent chance, and yet they got him in like second, third round. And I'm really excited to see what he can do. This will be his first. He didn't pitch at all last year in the pros. And so this will be his sort of debut as a professional baseball player. I wouldn't be surprised if they sent him to like high A immediately. That wouldn't shock me, right? Like it's unlikely, but it's possible. Surprised, but it's possible, right?
Did you see that? Did you see that? Like the numbers on his fastball in college?
I probably did, but I haven't. I can't.
Yeah, they're a little bit different because I think the college ball is a little bit different. But he had 22-inch IVB on his fastball. It was insane. Yeah. And they were like, now that'll come down just because naturally from the ball being different and stuff. But the guy was like, yeah, if it settles in at 19 or 20, he's still an elite fastball shape from a guy like Michael Lombardi. And I'm excited to see what he can do now that he's full-time pitching. I actually put him on the list for me before I scrolled down and saw that you already had him on there. But I think he's a very, very interesting guy. It'll be interesting to see what kind of third pitch they give him as well.
We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, we've gotten a lot of popular interest in this segment in the past, so you better bring it. What's your Just About Outside for this week?
Well, we're gonna go to the comedy world and call this a callback, ladies and gentlemen, because at the beginning of the show, Mark was talking about how not living next to a Costco gives me nightmares. Okay. I don't currently live next to a Costco, but they are building one about 10 minutes from my house.
At Mike's request, they have put one in right next to his house.
They have put one in. They're building one in Lee Summit currently, and that's close to where I live. And but I wanted to talk about why I love Costco so much, because it's a multi-layered thing, right? It's a multi-layered thing. For those of you who are Costco
shit
members,
is complex, man.
You already know why I do it. And I watched a video today that made me realize, like, oh, that's just another reason why I love Costco. So if you ever look into like the economics of an area, right? And we've talked about it a lot with the stadium and the Royals moving downtown and what that could mean to the businesses and places around it and sort of that stuff. If you look at like big box stores, whether it's Target or Walmart or Kohl's or those kind of places, when they go down in a community somewhere, that is generally speaking a bad thing for communities. Especially, we'll take Walmart as the example because they're the biggest retail in the United States. When they get plunked into the middle and they decide we're going to build a Walmart supercenter here, what happens is a lot of the smaller institutions around there, whether it's smaller grocers or hardware stores or whatever it is, they can't compete with the insanely low prices of Walmart, and they end up going out of business or whatever. So we know it's bad for the business community. But on top of that, because Walmart pays its workers garbage, the wages tend to go down as well, as Walmart ends up becoming one of the largest employers in the area as well. So that's all bad. When Costco does it, it's the reverse of that. And that's one of the reasons why I love Costco. It's the reverse of that because, one, Costco is a limited sale thing. So they don't have so many options that you can only get the stuff you need from Costco. The other thing is they pay their employees well. They give them healthcare. They give them time off. They give them holidays, those types of things. They are a positive employer. Therefore, the turnover isn't, they don't churn through employees like some of these other places do. And their
employees don't need federal benefits.
That's true. Their employees don't generally qualify for things like SNAP benefits and things like that, like Walmart employees often do. And then you talk about the things like we were talking about the hot dog earlier, right? I read a statement that said, Costco has come out and said that the loss leaders, which is what they call those, because they lose money on the hot dog thing, they lose money on rotisserie chickens that they still sell for $4.50, and all that sort of stuff. That they're like, we aren't going to increase the prices on those despite the pressure from tariffs and things like that, because not only is it good business for us, but we are going to help our members when we can, because we take membership fees. We don't wholeheartedly rely on profit margins to run our business. As a matter of fact, they have a limit on profit margins. That's how they keep their prices low. So they won't take more than a 14% profit margin on any single item. And so those are the kinds of business practices that I want to encourage, I guess, in businesses. Costco does very, very, very well, but their stock price doesn't always reflect that, because they aren't doing as well as they possibly can, right? They aren't trying to max out every revenue thing. They focus on, these are our members. What do our members want? What is best for our members? Let's do that instead of trying to squeeze every last dollar we can out of them. And I will always applaud a company that does that. Plus, I love a place where I can get my tires changed, where I can also eat pizza and buy
book a vacation.
Yeah, book a vacation, and also buy like all my pants. Right. It's fantastic. So
well, and they also
I'm
won't
really a big
do
fan.
any of that stuff at the sacrifice of their own employees. That's what I love. That's why I like Costco. Is like they could pay all of their employees way less and increase their profits, and that would make themselves more efficient, all that sort of stuff. But they won't do it, right? Like, and that was a tenet of businesses back in the 60s, 50s, and things
it
like
is
that.
like a business.
It's gone now.
It's gone now from 1960. That's really and the sad thing is, why are more businesses not using this model? Now, part of it is that Costco can do it because of scale and that sort of stuff. But yeah, you'll see small businesses do it still, because my wife kind of works at a small business that does stuff like this. But you just don't see the big guys do it anymore, and it's truly sad.
Yeah, hopefully there's a big backlash against that. Yes, that's wonderful. Mike's owed to Costco. He'll probably
love you, Costco.
Mike,
cannot wait till the Costco at least someone is built. Cannot wait,
Mike. If you die before me, your entire eulogy will just be Costco themed. Okay, I'll do that.
Please buy all the crap at the celebration of life at Costco.
I will.
Please do that.
I will. I'll do that. I'm talking about something else today because I got a lovely offer from a friend of mine maybe a week ago now. I can't remember. My memory's garbage, but it really made my day. He reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to co-edit a book with him. He is also a scholar in the same field that I am. And so he and I haven't worked together in like 10 years, 12 years, something like that, but we're still really good friends. And it got me thinking about like work partnerships. Like they've been so fruitful in my life. And so energizing that I wanted to just have people consider, who do you work really well with? I'm not talking about necessarily somebody you even need to like a lot or have a lot in common with. I've worked well with people I don't have a lot in common with. I like all the people I work well with, but I don't necessarily have a ton in common with all of them. And yet sometimes there's just something about the way you think and the way they think, and it works perfectly together. And so my friend and I are like this. I can't wait to work on this thing with him because I know that when we work, he has all the elements of his work personality and his work ethic and the way he goes about doing things are all the things that I don't have. Right. And so he perfectly compliments me because I'm like an ideas, big thinker guy. I'm like a big think outside the box, connect things that are not seemingly connected. And he's a big detail, methodical process guy, right? And so he can sort of take all of the stuff that I'm throwing out, rein it in, and make it make sense. That's sort of the relationship that we have and the dynamic we've had. And I've had that with other people as well. But it's just wonderful if you have a real good sense of who do you work really well with? Are you making stuff with those people? Are you working with those people? Are you having a good time enjoying what might be a productive moment with those people? I think it's really cool to have those types of relationships. And I encourage you to consider who your work partners are and should be. Mike, who's that for you at your job?
Well, I've had really good departments, really good history departments that I've been in for my whole career. So I've got a couple of people that I work with currently that are, we share everything. Like you talk about collaboration in education a lot. I mean, that's all we do. And so, but I've been very fortunate at the two schools that I've worked at to have fantastic history departments filled with not always people that, I was, as you mentioned, that we were a lot alike or anything. As a matter of fact, two of my closest collaborators at my last school were women in their, 50s. And we like to hang out together. We would hang out socially some too, but we're not a lot alike. But that's actually what made it better, I guess. Because as you mentioned, we kind of complemented each other. I'm very similar to you in that we're more big idea guys, but I can't process that into actions a lot of times. And so I ended up borrowing a lot of their stuff, and that would help me get to that point where I could do that. So, I've been very fortunate in my career to have those people as well. And I like to think this one as well,
Yeah.
You came to me with this several years ago now and was like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, well, not really. I don't have time. I don't really want to do this all the time. And you were like, hey, but we work really well together and I think it'll be fun. and we still
almost 5 years ago now. Our 5-year anniversary will be March 7th, everybody. So prepare yourself for that.
Half decade, everybody.
Half decade of Royals Weekly. Welcome to it. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure if you want more of this Royals Weekly, royalsweekly.substack.com. We're going to have a big sale going on soon. We'll be back again next week and for the next 9-10 months. So until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.